Good afternoon, everybody. It is 12 noon. It's July the 16th. It's Friday. We're heading into the weekend. My name is Mary Gregory, and it is Lessons in Leadership, episode 25. I'll have you, episode 35. Let me correct myself. Episode 35, I'll have you know. And I'm delighted to welcome another phenomenal leader, particularly with a wonderful story in terms of transformation. And that is Aaron Timms. Hello, Aaron. Nice to have you here today.
Hi, Mary. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I
love what you do.
Oh, I love what you do. So I can't wait to hear your story in more depth as well. So I just want to share, and I'll share with those that are watching today as well, that Aaron does have a phenomenal story to tell. He started life out, and we didn't start life out, but his career in work was as a mechanic. He was an apprentice at Jaguar Land Rover. And through phenomenal experiences, through really challenging circumstances, you've completely turned your life around. And Aaron is now the founder and director of the Conscious Success Academy, which is a training and coaching academy. But that wouldn't have come about if you hadn't gone through the journey that you've gone through. So let's start with that journey. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us a bit about what happened to you and how you got over that, really. So let's start with what happened.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. So as you mentioned, I was a car mechanic. When I left school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I loved cars, so I decided, hey, I'm going to get an apprenticeship at Jaguar. And that was my life, really. I loved what I did, and I played football, and I had friends, very kind of stereotypically young man, really. Went out and had fun at the weekends.
Yeah. And
that was my life. I kind of loved life, but very sort of normal, if you like. What is normal, but stereotypically normal. And then one day, everything changed. My life got completely turned upside down. I remember it was like it was yesterday. It was my best friend's 24th birthday. I was 21 at the time. It was in September 2008. It was the 22nd of September. And I'd actually been off work for the day because I had a broken leg, broke it playing football. So I'd been off work, and I'd been sitting there all day sort of, watching terrible TV and trying to find things to do with this broken leg and waiting for Ollie to come and collect me. And eventually he did. He came to collect me with his sister, who was my girlfriend. So I've been friends with Ollie for 8 years, and I've been with Donna, my girlfriend at the time, for 6 years.
Yeah.
So as they came to collect me, I kind of made my way out to the car on my crutches, and Ollie got out and got in the back so that I could. It was only a little 3-door Audi A3, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I got in the front because I couldn't climb into the back with a broken leg, and off we went. We went out to a restaurant to celebrate his birthday, and it's very stereotypically English. It was a nice little pub called the Cricketers, and cricket ground opposite, and a fireplace with lots of logs, and very, very English. It was beautiful, and as you'd imagine, the energy was wonderful. Lots of smile and laughter, and
yes,
we had an amazing evening. But like many good things, the night has to draw to an end. And as we left the pub, I was kind of making my way out the door, and Ollie shouted to me, and he said, "Aaron, I'll be back in a minute." And he went to the loo, and I made my way out. And as I'm kind of making my way across the car park, I'm with Donna, and she gets into the driver's seat. And as I'm stood next to the car, I can feel it's the most strange sensation. It's hard to describe. I can feel like this energetic pull almost. I didn't hear anyone speak, but it was like something was saying, "Aaron, get in the car." It was that strong. So I opened the door, I pushed the seat forwards, and I climbed in, and I was sort of scrambling in the back, and I had my crutch sort of jamming the seat forwards, and I was pulling my leg, literally pulling my leg with the plaster cast into the back. And I remember thinking, like, why am I doing this? Anyway, I did. I got in the back, and I put my seatbelt on, and Ollie came out 5 minutes later. He got in, and off we went. And that's when the crash happened. And we were doing around about 70 miles an hour, maybe 80, 90 kilometers an hour, something like that. And we lost control. And in the moment, like I remember it, it's clear. As we started to lose control, I could just see out of the windscreen, like the trees, the road, the trees as we were spinning side to side. And all of a sudden we hit a curve, flipped upside down, and bang, we hit this lamppost and we landed on the roof. And I knew in that moment, it was like I was screaming in agony, and I could feel it was like someone had a knife and they were driving it into the base of my spine. It was, I was screaming and howling like a child, but beyond my own screaming, I could hear, it's like I could hear a silence. It was really weird. And there was this kind of cold, dead, still energy in the air. And then what felt like days, and I now know to be about 40 minutes, I see blue flashing lights and the sound of metal tearing and the fire brigade cutting me out. And eventually I was taken to A&E, where, and that's where I spent the night. And my mum was there, my dad was there. And I remember when my mum turned up, and her face as she walked into the room, I could just see that everything was not okay. You know, that kind of like, I'm trying to be okay for you, but I'm not okay smile that people wear, like
putting on a brave face.
Putting on a brave face, yeah. And I could see by my mum's look it wasn't okay. And she came in and she just burst into tears. And at this point, I'm strapped down and, you know, orange neck brace and on the bed, and she kind of hugged over the bed and sort of hugged me, and we both burst into tears. And she said, you know, I'm so sorry. And they're gone. They didn't make it. And that's the moment I already knew it was, but that was the moment I found out that Ollie and Donna had both been killed upon impact.
Oh my God.
And then my mum started screaming and she said, "You've broken your back too." And I didn't know what that meant. All I knew is that my legs wouldn't move. I couldn't feel them. My back was in agony. I had no idea what that meant. And to be honest, I didn't care actually in that moment. So as you can imagine, that was, you know, it was pretty horrific. And then I was airlifted the next morning. I was taken by a helicopter over to a hospital near London, in Romford. And that's where I spent 3 weeks in intensive care. And then I had an operation to realign my spine. And the moment really was this, when after the operation, the consultants, they said to my dad, you know, "Mr. Timms, come in, you know, the operation, there was good news, bad news. The good news is that the operation went really well. We managed to realign his spine without any further damage. The bad news is his spine was more damaged than we originally thought. He's going to be in a wheelchair for life. He's going to be paralyzed for life." And I mean, I don't know anyone who's listening, you know, there's probably a lot of parents listening. You know, if you're a parent, you can imagine that carrying the weight of that. I'm now a parent, actually. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter.
Yes.
And I can't even bear the thought. And he went home and he had a conversation with my stepmom, and she's very spiritual, and she's always believed in natural alternatives to medicine as well. And they had a conversation, and they made a decision that I wasn't to know the true prognosis, if you like, or the truth. That if I knew the truth, I would give up hope and belief. Wow. So my dad came back to the hospital, and he made the decision to not tell anyone, including my mum, including everyone. He told one member of my mum's side of the family, just morally he felt it was right, but apart from that, he kept it a secret from everybody. And he told us all that I was going to walk again, everything was going to be okay, the doctors think I'm going to walk again, and he protected me from the true prognosis. And I really believe that's the reason that I walked, because I was transferred to Stoke Mandeville.
Yes.
And I turned to mind body healing, I turned to meditation, to visualizations, all of these things that were totally alien to me.
Yes.
And out of desperation, and 12 weeks later, I walked out of hospital. And that was the moment where life changed in a massive way.
After 12 weeks, you walked out of hospital.
12
so
weeks, yeah.
That is a really, I'm blown away by that as an experience, as a story. There are so many different elements to it, Aaron. I mean, because immediately where I go is, how did you feel? And whether I don't know whether you'd be conscious of your feelings at that point because you'd be so much in survival mode. But to hear that your friends had died, the shock of that, and the shock of lying there being stabilized because you couldn't move, etc., to then move through a period of 12 weeks to then walk out. So tell us a bit more about that, because that's blowing my mind, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's a big question in a way. How did I
It is a
feel?
big
Because
question.
there was so much going on. You know, there was moments when I didn't want to be alive, if I'm honest. There was moments of, the worst feeling was the survivor's guilt, because the reason I shared the bit about getting in the car earlier was because, you know, in the previous 6 weeks, I'd been in the front every time because of my broken leg. That one time I was in the back, and of course, I really believe it just wasn't my time, and that, you know, this is all happening for a reason. But now, at the time, the survivor's guilt was just horrendous. I mean, if you've ever experienced guilt, it's a pretty horrible feeling, right? And it was like amplified. There was guilt, there was grief, there was a total like lost and disorientated feeling. It's like I felt like a big hand had come out of the sky and picked me up and put me in someone else's life. There was, in a weird way as well, and this may sound strange to people listening, but there was also a knowingness of that this happened for a reason, and there was a determination to make sure that they didn't die for no reason. I guess it was my way of handling the guilt. I'm not really sure in a way, but there was this determination as well to walk.
I can get that. So there's something around, they didn't die for nothing. I'm going to be here and survive and walk again for them, for the loved ones that you lost, in effect.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing. That gave you a real driving motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. It drove me. I mean, you'll probably, anyone who's listening as well will probably resonate with this when I say it's often easier to do things for other people. It's often easier to do things for the people we love than it is ourselves. And that was really what was happening in that moment. Like, there was a bit of a self-pity, if I'm honest, of, you know, why me? And I've got a lot of victim going on, but there was also I'm going to make them proud, and I'm not going to let them die for no reason going on. So there was a real mixture of things happening.
So what kept you going through those 12 weeks to eventually be able to walk out of the hospital at the end of it?
Desperation, fear. When I looked at the wheelchair, you know, I was used to playing football. I was used to being strong and I don't know if athletics is the right word, but I was certainly fit and healthy. And I was used to enjoying my life. And I was 21, of course, as well. And looking at the wheelchair in the corner of the room, it was just it was so far away from where I could even begin to comprehend. I was just, I couldn't bear the thought of being paralyzed for life. It was so scary. You know, it was terrifying. That kept me going. That drove me. There was also something else. My stepmom said to me when I was in intensive care in Romford before I was transferred to Stoke Mandeville, she said, I know that this has happened for a reason. You're going to write a book. You're going to have a family. You're going to walk. You're going to share this story to people. And she told me all of these things. And she said things like that before in the past that I thought, you are just crazy. And they've come true. And there was a part of me holding on to that as a truth. And I was desperate for it to be true as well, of course. And there was also a drive to make this trauma, make this whole situation, you know, make it kind of take something good out of it. You know, there was a big driver there. And there was actually, in a strange way, there was moments of inspiration. There was actually moments of community. We built a community in hospital, and, you know, the Gutman Centre, which is a Paralympic centre next to Stoke Mandeville, we would go in there in the evenings, wheel down in the wheelchair and join in with some of the games, and we would, join in with some water aerobics with, fully able people as well as, and there was a community as well, and it was a sense of kind of, I don't know, it was a really incredible journey in terms of connecting with people. In how I felt, there was such a big array from one end of the spectrum to the other. Of course, anger as well. There's a lot of anger. So many things. So
I'm hearing a whole host of different emotions, but also I'm hearing the support that you got through that sense of community and that connection with other people that really helped you, as well as, that we shouldn't discount fear. I think we do a lot of, it's fear's driving us, but there's something about fear drove you in a positive way during this experience as well, didn't it?
Yeah, totally. Fear, in fact, actually, you've just made me reminded me of something really important, Mary, is that one of the things that drove me is I saw the look on my mum's face every time she walked into the room. I could see how frightened she was.
Yes.
And I could see that she wasn't handling this so well. I could see that when we spoke about finding a place to live, and to be honest, there were support workers that were trying to help me to find places that were wheelchair friendly, and I was like, I'm not going down that road. And when we had those type of conversations, I could see my mum was just petrified, and that drove me. That was my mum's fear that drove me, and it did. It was a wonderful thing. I mean, the moments it was horrible to experience, but you're right, it really drove me, and it's very powerful.
Yes, but you also mentioned there were things that inspired you. So what were those things that inspired you along the way?
The thought of doing good, the thought of writing a book, the thought of sharing this story, the thought of making an impact, that hadn't occurred to me before this crash. For me, it was always about try and get a good job, or have a business, or create security, or create a nice life. I grew up very poor as a child. My family lost their money through incidents that don't matter right now, but I grew up very poor. It was always life was always focused on creating something, or a certain quality of life, and absolutely, there's a massive place for that, of course. In fact, I help my clients do that, but equally, I realized that there's a lot more to life with growth and with contribution, and this new world of spirituality opened up for me, something I wasn't really familiar with, and that was really inspiring. The idea of actually being someone that helps other people was a new idea, and it became like, wow, I could do that actually. And that was inspiring.
Yes. So it kind of opened your eyes to all sorts of possibilities that in your previous existence, when you were the mechanic and you describe yourself as just a normal lad, enjoying my life. It was almost like through this traumatic experience and the circumstances that followed, it really opened your eyes to other possibilities, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And through that, you've transformed yourself, you've transformed your life. You're now the founder of the Conscious Success Academy, which is incredible. So tell us a bit more about how you went about setting that up, and tell us a bit more about writing your book as well. So we've got two more things to talk about there.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, I'll very quickly, I'll tell you, it was a moment in this, the crash happened in 2008. And from 2008 all the way up to 2018, I went through this very conflicting journey of trying to be spiritual and trying to be happy, but not really understanding that I'd lost who I was, my identity. I didn't know who I was. So it was a very up and down, turbulent time for me. And I also felt like I had this gift in this story of hope and belief, but I didn't know how to get it out there. And one day, a friend of mine, also a business partner, kind of persuaded me to go to an event, and it was called Millionaire Mind Intensive, and I thought it was about business, but it turns out it was a personal development event, which is a big shock. And kind of very long story short, I bought a program, and I was asked as a participant to come onto the stage and share, why did you buy the program? Like, why do you want to continue this journey? And when I shared what had happened to me, and I said, it's not really about money anymore. It used to be, but it's about getting a message out there, and I don't know how to do that. And the whole room just stood up and applauded. And I was like, whoa. And I really didn't expect that. And that was the moment I realized that if I didn't do something about this, if I didn't share this story, if I didn't get out of my own way, if I didn't get over my own insecurities, my own fears, and share this, then it's like a betrayal to my soul.
Yes.
And I can't do that. So
yes.
in that moment, I made a pact. I made a pact to myself. I kind of looked up and made a pact to the sky and just said, right, I'm going to commit my life to sharing this. And so I created a program called Master Your Mind, Heal Your Body. And I started to work with people and explore, and people started to heal their bodies, and had this kind of like amazing sort of journey of helping people and becoming a mind body healing coach. And then I realized there's so much more than just healing. Healing is also about growth and contribution. It's about being happy. So it expanded, and then I learned more about life and met wonderful people like yourself and learned so much. And I thought this is just the seed. And then I had this kind of epiphany moment where we need conscious education in the world. So it transitioned from being a healing program to, okay, I want to create a curriculum. So I started to write different programs, and now we do different trainings and coachings with different programs. And, you know, the eventual goal, if you like, is to create an education system.
Yes.
So that's kind of the journey of how it unfolded.
That is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I love that it's like you had several epiphanies actually along the way, but that whole thing of sharing your story and then realizing sharing my story can really make a difference here, which is phenomenal. So that's fantastic. Thank you. And you've written your book. Yes. And how's that gone? Tell us a bit more about your book.
I have a copy here.
Yes. Belief-bound mind. Lovely.
Belief-bound mind. Unlock your dream life by unlocking your mind. Again, a wonderful journey. I wrote the book, and that in itself was an incredible journey, writing a book, because again, to me, writing a book was like, I can't write a book. So that whole journey was brilliant. And it's gone really well. It got an Amazon bestseller, which was fantastic. I didn't expect that. And it's now published through Balboa Press, which is the self-publishing sort of sister company or side of Hay House, which is really
great,
really awesome. And it's gone really well.
Fantastic. And I really get, you talk a lot about how to get over myself, and I talk about that in my book, which is all about ego, because that's what I'm hearing is because we've talked about fear earlier on. I have ego is always fear driven, so it's what keeps, we're frightened by what, or we feel anxious by something, so our ego kicks in to protect us. And yet I'm also hearing that it's helped you in terms of it's motivated you to keep moving forward. But then also you mentioned how you really did have to get over yourself to get the book written, to get the courses online, to become the speaker and coach that you are today. What worked for you? What helped you get over yourself?
That is a great question. And
it may be several things. I'll give you, it might not just be the one thing. I'm asking it in the singular, but it might be several things.
It is. The first thing, okay, so the catalyst was this. It was, I started to read books, and I learned on an intellectual level. I didn't really understand it through experience yet, but I learned on an intellectual level that all fear is an attachment to self. It's all about self, which obviously is ego.
Yeah.
So I started to understand that by not turning up or not putting myself in a position to speak or not writing the book, I started to understand that it was actually selfish. So that was the first realization. When I understood that, it was like, okay, I'm not willing to be selfish. And then I started to learn more about how the mind works and about how perception works. And I started to expand my spiritual literacy more. And I started to understand, I started to realize how people were viewing me was based on how they view themselves. So that's a reflection of themselves. And those two lessons were very helpful to me to start to be able to come outside of my shell and not worry about what people thought of me. And that was a huge thing. And then ongoing, it's been a process, because what I found is that at every level I go to, or every new game I play, if you like, every step I take, there's a new kind of, there's a new sense of self attached to it. So it's an ongoing journey to always overcome myself.
Yes.
And that I realized was brilliant, because now I've got a phenomenal coach and processor who always processes me. So I'm always processing myself, which is something I do too. That's the short answer.
That sounds really, really great. I'm kind of nodding here thinking some of this is very familiar. Now, you've also mentioned several times during our conversation the spiritual element that you've got connected with it, your life. And people have different interpretations of what spiritual means. So what does spiritual mean to you, Aaron? When you talk about being more spiritual, what does that mean for you?
Thank you for asking that question, Mary, because this is important. Because when I was growing up, I saw a lot of the spiritual people, and I got an idea or a story about what spirituality was. And I was so far from the truth, and probably many people have had a similar experience. I used to think spirituality was about past lives and regressions and all of these things. And there may be some truth there. But what I've really understood is that spirituality is really very simple. It's about growth, and it's about contribution.
Yes.
It's about overcoming yourself and living a life that matters and that feels good.
Yes.
And that at its simplest form is how I would sum up spirituality.
Yes.
Doing what's right and growing and contributing.
Wow, I love that. That's a very simple interpretation of what it is. It's all about contribution. It's all about being values centered and driven, as well as what I'm hearing too. Gosh, Aaron, you have shared so many insights, some profound insights today. So I hope everyone that's been watching today, you've enjoyed what Aaron's had to say. And if you're watching and catch up, do please leave us comments. We always pay attention to your comments and answer your comments when we see them. But I just want to say a very big thank you to you for what you've shared with us today. And I know that we're coming through to the end of lockdown now. So, there's a bit of anxiety around about how things are ending in terms of moving into the new normal. What advice, having been through what you've been through, what final words would you like to leave people with as we come through this continuing to be turbulent times, I would say?
The message that I really want to get across to people is that if I can do it, you can too. I am just a normal human being, and we all have superpowers, and I get that side of it, but actually we're all equal. We all have the same amount of abilities. How much of them we tap into is different, but we all we are all equal. And if I can do that, then you can too. It's very simple. I'm just a normal guy who did something extraordinary, and everyone has the ability to do that. And that's really what I want to kind of really home in on people. And you've got to know that everything starts with you. And you, which I love, is the acronym for your own universe. So,
lovely, lovely. God, you're really knocking them out here. That's great. That's another wonderful insight for us as well. Your own universe is you. That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Aaron. It's been a complete pleasure having you here today. And thank you to everyone who's been watching today. Do watch in catch up if you can, or make comments in the comments box too. It's my delight to welcome Trevor Emdham next week for our next episode of Lessons in Leadership. So do join us at 12 noon then. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you once again, Aaron.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.